There is a road in the American West that leads nowhere. No gas station at the end of it. No diner. No cell signal. Just the wind, the dust, and the bones of a town that used to be full of people who thought they were going to be rich. America has over 3,000 ghost towns. 3,000 places where someone built a dream, gave it a name, put up a post office and a school and a saloon, and then watched it die. Some of them burned. Some of them flooded. Some of them just ran out of whatever it was that made them worth staying in. And most of them are sitting out there right now, completely forgotten, slowly being swallowed by the desert or the forest or the prairie, and Google Maps will not show you a single one of them. Today we are going to 7 of them. Places that do not appear on tourist maps, places that the algorithm has never recommended, places where the only visitors are the crows, the rattlesnakes, and the very rare person who knows where to look. These are not theme park ghost towns. There are no gift shops. There are no guided tours. There are no reconstructed facades propped up for Instagram. These are the real ones, the ones that got left behind so completely that even the leaving was forgotten. Let us start at number 7. Number 7, Bodie, California, the town that God forgot. Most people have heard of Bodie. What most people have not heard is what Bodie actually looks like when you are standing inside one of its buildings, looking at a table that still has a coffee cup on it. A coffee cup from 1942, sitting there like whoever poured it just stepped outside for a minute and never came back. Bodie sits at over 8,000 feet elevation in the eastern Sierra Nevada. In 1879, it had 10,000 people. It had 65 saloons. It had a red light district, a Chinatown, a daily newspaper, and a reputation so violent that when a little girl found out her family was moving there, she wrote in her diary, "Goodbye, God, I'm going to Bodie." The gold ran out. The people left. And because California made Bodie a state historic park in 1962 and adopted a policy of arrested decay, meaning they preserve it but do not restore it, everything inside those buildings is exactly where it was left. Calendars on the walls, shoes under beds, medicine bottles on shelves, a pool table in a saloon that has not seen a game since the 1930s. The wind in Bodie is constant and brutal. In winter, snowdrifts bury the structures up to their rooftops. In summer, the high desert sun bleaches everything bone white. The town does not look like it is sleeping. It looks like it is waiting for something, and it has been waiting for a very long time. Number 6. Rhyolite, Nevada. The city that built itself in 3 years and died in 5. If you drive about 120 miles northwest of Las Vegas, you will eventually turn off the highway onto a dirt road and you will start to see walls. Not complete buildings. Walls. Facades without roofs. Concrete frames reaching up at the sky with nothing between them. Rhyolite was founded in 1905 after prospectors found gold in the Bullfrog Hills. Within 18 months, it had a population of 10,000. It had electric lights, running water, a stock exchange, 3 newspapers, an opera house, and a train station that cost $130,000 to build in 1908 money. Let that number sit with you for a moment. By 1911, it was abandoned. The panic of 1907 hit Nevada's mining economy like a freight train. The gold deposits at Rhyolite turned out to be far shallower than anyone had hoped. The banks collapsed. The people left so fast they did not bother to take their furniture. The train made its last run in 1914. Within a decade, the population was 0. What remains today is haunting in a way that is hard to explain. The train station, that $130,000 train station, still stands, roofless and hollow, its arched windows framing nothing but sky. The shell of the 3-story Cookbank building dominates what used to be the main street. And in the desert outside of town, there is an open-air art installation called the Goldwell Open Air Museum, where a Belgian sculptor erected life-sized ghostly figures in white silica cement that now stand among the ruins like they are waiting for a train that is never going to come. Rhyolite is what happens when human ambition collides with geological reality. It is 5 years of explosive growth compressed into rubble and concrete and wind. Number 5. Cahaba, Alabama, the drowned capital. Not every ghost town is in the West. Not every ghost town died because of mining. And not every ghost town looks like what you imagine when you hear the word. Cahaba, Alabama was the first capital of the state of Alabama. In 1819, when Alabama achieved statehood, the new government chose a site at the confluence of the Cahaba and Alabama rivers and declared it the seat of power. They built a state house. They built hotels and stores and homes for the politicians and lawyers and merchants who were going to make this city great. Then it flooded. Then it flooded again. Then it flooded a third time, and the capital was moved to Tuscaloosa. But people stayed. Remarkably, people stayed in Cahaba for decades after the capital left. At its peak before the Civil War, Cahaba had 3,000 residents and was a prosperous small city. Then the war came. A Confederate prison camp was established there, Camp Cahaba, which held Union prisoners in conditions so brutal that the suffering there became infamous. Then the war ended, and the town began its long decline. By the 1870s, most of the population had relocated to nearby Selma. By 1900, the city of Cahaba was effectively dead. What you find there today is not ruins of buildings, but something far stranger, a landscape of old streets that are now just clearings in the forest, the outlines of foundations barely visible beneath the soil, and in spring, something extraordinary. The ruins of Cahaba are carpeted every April and May in a sea of spider lilies, thousands of them, blooming across the old town site in waves of white. It is one of the most surreal and beautiful sights in the American South. A ghost town blooming. The forest has swallowed most of it, but if you know where to look, you can still find the old well. The columns of the old artesian well structure stand in a clearing, and in spring, those spider lilies bloom around them like a memorial that nature decided to plant itself. Number 4. Centralia, Pennsylvania, the town that is still on fire. This one is different. This one is not just abandoned. This one is actively, literally, still burning. In 1962, a fire ignited in an abandoned coal mine beneath the town of Centralia, Pennsylvania. Nobody is completely sure exactly how it started. The leading theory involves a landfill fire that spread into an exposed coal seam. But what everyone agrees on is that nobody put it out in time. The fire spread into the vast network of coal tunnels beneath the town and kept going. It is still going today. More than 60 years later. At its peak in the 1980s, Centralia had over 1,000 residents. Carbon monoxide levels inside homes began reaching dangerous levels. Sinkholes opened in backyards. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy was walking through his grandmother's backyard when a sinkhole opened beneath his feet and he fell into a steaming pit that went down 150 feet. He survived only because his cousin grabbed his arm. The ground temperature in some areas of Centralia measured over 900 degrees Fahrenheit, just a few feet below the surface. The federal government bought out most of the residents and demolished most of the buildings in the 1980s and 1990s. The population dwindled to almost nothing. Today, the official population of Centralia is 7 people. 7 people who refused to leave and won the legal right to stay until they die. What remains is one of the most surreal landscapes in America. Empty streets with stop signs and fire hydrants and sidewalks leading to nothing. Lots where houses used to stand, now just grass. And Route 61, the old highway that ran through town, cracked and buckled and permanently closed, its asphalt split open by the heat and subsidence beneath it. Teenagers have covered the broken highway in graffiti for 30 years. Steam still vents from cracks in the earth. The fire beneath Centralia is projected to burn for another 250 years. This is not a town that died. This is a town that is being consumed from below. Number 3. Kennecott, Alaska, the Copper King at the end of the world. To get to Kennecott, you drive the McCarthy Road, 60 miles of unpaved gravel in the middle of Wrangell St. Elias National Park, the largest national park in the United States. A park so large it contains several mountain ranges. You drive until the road ends at the Kennecott River, and then you cross on a footbridge, and then you walk or take a shuttle 5 miles to what remains of one of the most profitable mining operations in American history. The Kennecott mines produced over $700 million worth of copper between 1903 and 1938 in early 20th century dollars. The machinery they built to do it is still there. The mill buildings, massive red structures 14 stories tall, clinging to the side of a glacier-carved mountain, are still there. The bunkhouses where the miners slept, the hospital, the general store, The tennis courts that management installed to keep workers from going insane during the long Alaskan winters, all still there. When the copper ran out in 1938, the company closed the mines and gave the workers 1 week to get out. Everything that was not nailed down was loaded onto the last train and removed. Everything that was nailed down stayed. The train stopped running on the Copper River and Northwestern Railway. The tracks were removed for scrap during World War II, and Kennecott sat in the Alaskan wilderness, visited by almost nobody, for decades. The National Park Service now manages the site and has done careful work to stabilize the buildings, but this is not a restored town. This is a frozen moment. The mill buildings stand exactly as they were left. The equipment inside, the ball mills, the flotation cells, the concentration machinery, sits rusting in the thin Alaskan air at 4,000 feet elevation. And behind it all, the Root Glacier moves imperceptibly, as it has been moving for 10,000 years. The mountains do not care about copper prices. The mountains do not care about any of it. Kennecott is a reminder that everything humans build in wilderness is ultimately on loan. Number 2. St. Elmo, Colorado. The best preserved ghost town in America. There is a moment, driving up Chalk Creek Canyon in Chaffee County, Colorado, when the road narrows and the mountains close in on both sides, and you round a bend, and suddenly there it is. A full town, sitting at 11,400 feet, completely intact. Buildings lining a real street, a hotel, a general store, a post office, a jail. St. Elmo was founded in 1880 during Colorado's Silver Rush. At its peak, it had 2,000 residents and was a supply hub for the surrounding mines. The railroad came in 1880 and left in 1922 when the mines were played out. Most of the population followed the railroad out of the mountains. What makes St. Elmo extraordinary is not just what remains, but how much of it remains. Colorado's dry mountain climate and the remoteness of the location meant that the buildings were not salvaged for lumber or destroyed by development. They just stood there. Decade after decade, the roofs held, the walls held, the false front commercial buildings along the main street stood. For a time, a woman named Annabelle Stark lived alone in St. Elmo as its last full-time resident. She moved there as a child with her family and simply never left, living in the old hotel, feeding the chipmunks and the tourists who occasionally found their way up the canyon until her death in 1960. The locals called her the Ghost of St. Elmo. She outlasted everyone. Today, St. Elmo is on the National Register of Historic Places. On summer weekends, a small number of visitors make the drive up the canyon. The chipmunks, descendants arguably of Annabelle's chipmunks, will climb directly onto your hand if you hold out food. The buildings creak in the wind, and if you stand on the main street at dusk, when the shadows of the mountains fall across the empty storefronts and the only sound is the creek running behind the buildings, it is very easy to understand why Annabelle Stark never left. Some places do not let you go. Number 1. Thurmond, West Virginia. The town time locked. There is a train station in Fayette County, West Virginia that the National Park Service has preserved and staffed with a single ranger during summer months. The ranger sits in the old depot and answers questions about the town that used to surround it. The town is still there, most of it. You can walk through it in about 10 minutes. Thurmond, West Virginia was built entirely around the railroad and the coal that the railroad carried. At its peak in the 1910s, Thurmond handled more freight than Cincinnati, more freight than Richmond, millions of tons of coal moving through this tiny canyon town on the New River every year. The Dun Glen Hotel was the most profitable hotel in West Virginia. Gambling, alcohol, and other activities that the surrounding dry counties prohibited made Thurmond a destination. Miners and railroaders coming from across the region to spend money in a town that never seemed to close. The town had no road access. There was no highway to Thurmond. You arrived by train or you did not arrive. When diesel locomotives replaced steam engines and required fewer crew changes, and when the coal economy of southern West Virginia began its long decline, Thurmond had nothing to fall back on. The hotel burned in 1930. The businesses closed one by one. The population dropped from over 400 to under 100 to a handful. Today, the official population of Thurmond is five people, in a town with a real post office, zip code 25936, and a real train station, and streets of old commercial buildings slowly being eaten by the forest that presses in from every side. What makes Thurmond the most haunting entry on this list is that it is not quite dead. It exists in a liminal state, not a ghost town in the technical sense because people still live there, but not a living town in any meaningful sense either. The CSX railroad still runs freight through it on the same tracks that made it rich 100 years ago. The trains do not stop. They rumble through at speed, shaking the old buildings, and they are gone in seconds, and the silence that follows is absolute. There is something about Thurmond that the others on this list do not quite have. The others died. Thurmond is still here, still technically alive, still getting mail, still on the map. But whatever it was that made it worth being here, whatever energy or ambition or hunger that packed those streets with people who thought they were standing at the center of something, that has been gone for a very long time. 3,000 ghost towns, 3,000 reminders that every boom ends, every rush runs dry, every railroad gets rerouted. Every town that ever called itself the next great city has its moment of reckoning, and most of them lose. But here is what stays with you after you have walked through enough of these places. It is not the silence, though the silence is enormous. It is not the decay, though the decay is everywhere. It is the ordinary things, the coffee cup in Bodie, the calendar on the wall, the chipmunks in St. Elmo, the spider lilies in Cahaba. Life keeps moving through these places even after the people are gone, and eventually the places themselves become something new. Not what they were, not what they were supposed to be, but something stranger and more permanent than either. America built itself on the belief that the next place would be better. The next valley, the next mountain, the next vein of ore, and sometimes it was, and sometimes it was not. And what remains of the times it was not is out there right now, waiting for the next person who knows where to look.